Hello everyone. In this session, we will deep dive into ABAP events, what they are, when they occur, and how to use them to write clean and maintainable reports with the help of a real-time example. Events are not functions. They are runtime hook points, the ABAP runtime calls when certain conditions occur. By the end of this video, you will be able to learn what are ABAP events, types of events in a report, what happens internally when each event is triggered, and finally, how all these works. To make this learning practical, we will see them in action using a simple ABAP program. We will see each event step by step in the debugger so you can clearly understand when and why each event is triggered. Let's log out to SAP GUI and go to transaction SE38. Enter a name for your report program and click on the Create button. If you were new to ABAP reports, please check out for the previous video where we explained how to create an ABAP report program from scratch. For this session, we already have a sample program specifically designed to demonstrate all major ABAP report events. So here, we are having events listing, initialization, at selection screen output, at selection screen, start of selection, and end of selection. Let's learn one by one. To begin with, we can set a breakpoint in the initialization event. Let's execute the program. So we can see that initialization is the very first event triggered when a report program starts, even before the selection screen is displayed to the user. Here, we pre-fill the date field with side datum. At this point, the selection screen is not visible yet, but the values are already set internally. One important point regarding initialization event is that even if the user executes the program multiple times, initialization does not run again unless the program is restarted. Basically, initialization is useful in setting the default values to the user before the screen is displayed. The very next event triggered after initialization is at selection screen output. Let's put a breakpoint here as well. At selection screen output triggers every time just before the selection screen is displayed. Here, we control the visibility of the material number field based on the checkbox. Screen active flips between 1 and 0 based on P-show. When P-show is unchecked, screen active for P-Matna is set to 0, which makes the Matna field inactive and invisible. When P-show is checked, the screen active is set to 1, so the Matna field becomes active and visible on the selection screen. So, depending on the checkbox, the field either appears or disappears dynamically. This is how at selection screen output event allows dynamic screen modifications before the user even interact with the fields. Next, once the selection screen is displayed and the user enters or provides input to the selection screen, ABAP triggers at selection screen event. This event is used to validate user input. In this scenario, if the user clears the mandatory date field and then tries to execute the report, the system immediately stops the processing and displays an error message, "Date is mandatory." At this breakpoint, we can observe the program evaluating certain conditions and either allowing the execution to continue or stopping it with the appropriate message. After successful validations, coming to the next event, start of selection. This is the main processing block where the actual business logic begins. All major business logics like fetching data from tables, calculations, and preparing the data for output happens here. Place a breakpoint here as well and execute the program. Here we enter a Matna value or else leaves empty. For now, we can give a Matna value and executes. Will stops here after the screen is processed. For the given example, we fetch material data from Mara table. If matter field is having value, then fetch details for that material, and if matter is empty, then fetch a small default list. Notice that nothing from start of selection runs until the input validation is completed. This ensures that the main logic only executes with clean and verified data. And then prepare the final output and display it in the ALV. You can actually watch the ALV instances being created in the debugger. In our case, we create the ALV object here and call function module reuse ALV grid display to display it. At this point, the internal table LT_mara is passed to the function module for displaying it. So, when we execute, what all details in the LT_mara will be displayed in the ALV. Any additional formatting, customizations, or layout changes can also be applied in this event. When the program is executed without providing a matter value, the system fetches and displays a default list of material records from the Mara table, like this. Next event is end of selection. End of selection is a report event that indicates the logical completion of data selection in an ABAP report. To see this, let's make our program editable. Place a breakpoint in this event, activates, and execute the program. Even if we do not write any code in this event, SAP internally reaches end of selection after executing start of selection. In older classical reports, this event was commonly used to write output logics, but in modern ALV-based reports, it often remains empty. Today, end of selection mainly serves as a structural and conceptual marker rather than a place for business logics. Alright, that brings us to the end of this session. Through this session, we saw that events are not just sections of code. They are the building blocks that shapes the entire flow of an ABAP report. Each event plays a unique and predictable role. Initialization sets the default values. At selection screen, output triggers just before the screen is displayed to the user. At selection screen ensures the input is clean and valid. Start of selection carries out the core business logic. And end of selection mainly act as a conceptual or structural milestone rather than placing a business logic, especially in modern ALV reports. So in the next session, we will be covering list processing events like top of page, end of page, and at line selection, which enhance formatting and interactivity. If you find this video interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching and see you in the next session on ABAP programming.